All right, what's happening? We are live once again. Back outside. It was so popular yesterday that I decided to come out here today. But it's a different day. Imagine that. The temperature is probably about 10 degrees cooler, uh, overcast, probably geoengineered skies. You might hear some birds in the background, which is always good, and get a sense that there is an analog world and we are still living in one. So, welcome and good morning to another edition of 15 Minutes of Flame. It's me, Robert Phoenix, you're you, and we're all in it together, aren't we? Let's see who's here. We have Michael Pafford right out of the gate. Numero uno. What's going on? John G., Sabrina C., Timothy Hartful. Hello, Timothy. Andrea Garland. There's Lisa Marie. Miranda Couch and Lils. Susie Escobar. She's here. MK. What's going on, MK? Deirdre Jingleheimer Schmidt. Good to see you. Susan Cano in the house. Susan Cano with that Mars and Scorpio. Watch out. Let's see. Michael Sisternino. What's going on, Papa? Natasha's here. What else? Oh, there's Ashanti. What's going on, Ashanti? Good morning. Chilly here in SoCal. I saw that cold front coming your way. We had rain. This is from Lynn. The day I put my sprinklers in. Yeah, that happens. Frank Bry. Chilly in Idaho. Yes, it is the polar river, right? The polar river descending upon us, theoretically. Uncle Glenn in the house. Mary Olmstead. Hello, Mary. Double V. My man, Paul Netton. What's going on, Paul? You should be tracking your package. I'll send you the info. I think it may have crossed the Atlantic at this point. Johnny Cruz. What's going on, my man? Z's in the house. Hello, Z. Jimmers. 333. There's Jacqueline. Hello, Jacqueline. The Bisou. Snake Jones. Rain Day. All right. Hello, Tamara. Scrubby's in the house. Let's see, who else do we have? There's Jessica Rosen. Freezing in Florida. 34. Wow, that is cold for Florida. Florida is the new free land, isn't it? We're going to talk a little bit about Florida today. Teresa Blackburn showing up, representing. Ryan. What's going on, Ryan? Good to see you. The introspective woodworker. Nancy Harding. Turquoise Rose. Christy Tesmer. Another person living in a cold place. Paulette Hansen. Morning, Paulette. There's Jen S. Morning, Jen S. The Bodie abides. And the Bodie is here. Okay, I think we're good to go. I think we are good to go. We have a quorum, as they say. Hey, Jennifer Rubin. Jennifer Rubin. You showed up. So they have these top 10, like, most underrated sci-fi films. So there's a top 10 underrated space horror film list. And Jennifer, you show up in the movie Screamers, if I'm not mistaken. And Peter Weller is in Screamers. Is that right? Peter Weller, or is it? I think it's Peter Weller. Were you in that with Peter Weller? Anyway, I was like, oh, I know her. Let's see, who else do we have here? Kelly Kells. What's happening, Kelly Kells? Good to see you. Alabama Barbie. Howdy, on my way out. Catch you all later. Have a blessed day. Okay, well, we'll catch you on the replay. And Half Q. What's going on, Half Q? Misty Minor. Morning, Misty. And Jennifer Fitzgerald. What's going on, Jennifer? Checking in from just a bit north. It was Peter Weller. Peter Weller, yes. There you go. You made the top 10 on the most underrated space horror films of all time. That's a genre, There's horror, and then there's space horror, and which has elements of grindcore in it. Let's see. Monkey butt toenail. Fell asleep in front of the fireplace, drinking hot coffee kratom mix. Listening to The Cure equals disintegration. That sounds like a very good morning, I have to say. You got hot coffee kratom mix, which I've never done before, and then you're listening to The Cure in front of the fireplace. Peter Weller's an interesting guy. He got out of Hollywood. Peter Weller escaped Hollywood, and I think he went to school and got a PhD and became a university professor. I think anthropology or something like that. Very interesting life path. What's going on, Mark Matheny? Good to see you, my friend. My antipode. My wife left and took the kids. Is that a good thing for the day, perhaps? Or is that a more permanent situation? There she is, the lovely and talented Jonas. Watching The Expanse, so much predictive programming. It's crazy. Steve Letro, 36 in Easton, Maryland, walking today. Great show with Emily, saw last night. Going to stop kombucha. Yeah, kombucha is not your friend. I don't think kombucha is your friend. Too much fermentation, too much sugar. Sugar is the unfortunate enemy. If you want to get clear, drop the sugar. I cut out the sugar. I try to stay away from it as much as possible. And I think I lost about 30 pounds. I think I got close to 30 pounds just by dropping the sugar, dropping the carbs, and of course the key is the real fun sugar is drinking, and I cut that out. He was great in Buckaroo Banzai. I'm a Peter Weller fan. He was paid $1 million, and I was paid his lunch money. Well, you're much better to look at than Peter Weller. I can tell you that right now. Let's see. Based on a Philip K. Dick short story. That's right. That's right. And that goes to Tessa, who may or may not be lurking here, which is 6 degrees of PKD. We're living in a PKD world, aren't we? T. Jordan in the house. What's going on? Jack Dorsey taking kombucha enemas. Is Jack Dorsey just perpetually stoned? Sugar is fuel for cancer cells. Yep, sure is. What's going on, Z? Or there's Ani, the wench with the wrench. W.C. Ray, Sugar Blues, the 70s. Yeah. Hey, there's Christine Mose. What's going on? Speaking of Rose, Christine Mose and Danica Rose. We got a little iambic pentameter potential here. Let's see. Anybody else? I think we're good. Oh yeah, 1-0 Dragon 14. There you go. And Lisa Koloshinsky. We got a lot of Wisconsin. We got a lot of Wisconsin representing. Just saying. In California, checking in. What's going on? Double B, Beth Berry. I think Dorsey microdoses. I think you're right, actually. That's what I've heard. Hey, Megan Donovan, what's going on? I do think he microdoses. Ian Barber just checked in. Hello, Ian. Good morning. They have sugarless kombucha that's sweetened. I think it's the fermentation. The fermentation is also something you have to watch out for. What's going on, Craig? Good to see you, my friend. We still need to connect. So I'm on kind of a time crunch today. I actually have somebody showing up here for a reading, which is kind of rare. But that's going to happen at 10:30. So I got to be out here by 10. Make the place look presentable. Squirrel, hey Squirrel, what's going on? Michelle Whistle, coming in from Oregon, where they have just legalized, decriminalized every substance known to man. Speaking of Oregon, I saw an interview with Andy. How do you say his last name? Andy NGO. Apparently, he's got a book on Antifa. Boy, he's really articulate. He is really articulate. And he had to leave the country. I think he's from Thailand. I think he had to go back to Thailand because of all the threats that were being levied against him. Now, that guy's a journalist. That guy is a journalist. That guy has risked his life in order to document, chronicle, and dig into Antifa. That's a real journalist. And it shows you when you are a real journalist, it is a very, very dangerous occupation. Very dangerous. So if you feel like supporting him, you may want to check out his book on Antifa, which would probably help him a great deal. April Himmel from South Carolina showing up. And there's Brenda Zarifan. Steve, I was just thinking about you. Good to see you, my man. Yeah. Yeah, it was a really, really good interview. I may take a class with Boghossian at PSU next term. That would be great. I like Peter Boghossian a lot. He's a Leo. And he kind of comes across as Leo. I was listening to James Lindsay. I'm going to talk a little bit about James Lindsay today. Not a whole lot, but I was listening to him this morning. And he was talking about how, and this is something that I've played around with in my head, how COVID and wokeism and critical race theory and intersectionality, that they're all viral, that they all have this viral capacity. And it's a pretty good talk, because it is a virus. This brand of neo-Marxism based on these principles of oppression. I'm going to talk a little about that today. Based on principles of oppression, have basically infected every single sector of our society. It is like a rapidly spreading cancer, which does not allow for any sort of objectivity. It is all viewed through a very subjective lens that's based on life is oppressive. Conditions are oppressive. And those oppressive conditions are a result of cultural institutions that are mired in fascism, racism, sexism, and colonialism. And until those four pillars are eradicated, we cannot have a meaningful, peaceful coexistence on this planet. And that ties into the Antifa ideology, which I'll talk about a little bit. And this relates to one of the topics we're going to cover today, which is the display of Brian Sicknick. So before I get into that, let's just have a moment of silence today. You guys just hang out with the tree for a minute. Let's just have a little moment of silence just to kind of bring things together. All right. A different kind of invocation today. got to change things up a little bit. So I wanted to talk about Brian Sicknick. Well, who is Brian Sicknick? Some of you probably know who Brian Sicknick is. You're a pretty switched on group. Brian Sicknick is the officer that apparently died of a brain aneurysm about 2 or 3 days after the theater at the Capitol. Let's call it the theater at the Capitol. And the story is that somebody dropped a fire extinguisher and hit him in the head, and then 3 days later he dies. So Brian Sicknick is a martyr. He is a reverse martyr. So let me show you the story here, so you guys can get ramped up to speed around this. So lawmakers honor slain Capitol Police Officer Brian Sicknick in Rotunda. So here you have this unholy trinity of Yertle the Turtle, Chuck Schumer. You know, the more that I look at him, it looks like it's Chuck Schumer that's in that Ashley Babbitt kind of experience, that Ashley Babbitt moment in the stairwell, where I don't think anything happens. That's just my opinion, based on how the gun actually fires down the hallway and not really at her. That character looks a lot like Chucky Schumer. And then, of course, we have Nancy Pelosi. So what are they doing here? So here, let's read this. Brian Sicknick, the slain U.S. Capitol Police officer who was given the rare distinction of lying in honor in the Capitol Rotunda, received a final tribute from lawmakers Wednesday. President Biden and First Lady Jill Biden joined Sicknick's family members and colleagues from the Capitol Police in a period of visitation on Tuesday night. Sicknick, 42, died from injuries he sustained fending off members of the mob that breached the Capitol complex on January 6th. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi, Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer delivered remarks at a ceremony Wednesday morning praising him as a patriot and someone who possessed profound inner strength. It is my official and sad honor to welcome Officer Brian Sicknick and many who loved, respected, and were protected by him to the United States Capitol Rotunda for a recognition of his life, Pelosi said. Now, color me cynical. I don't think they really care about Brian Sicknick. I don't think they really give a flying fuck about Brian Sicknick. Number one, this is political grandstanding. Number two, it is reverse martyrdom. The left loves martyrs. They love martyrs. They build movements on martyrs. And Sicknick theoretically represents police, law enforcement, protection, the people, the actual people that during the summer that the left, the so-called left, and Democrats wanted to defund. You notice how the defunding has quieted down. Like they've sort of pulled back on the defunding. Now they want to make the police their allies. They want to make them their accomplices. By the way, accomplice is a term that is used in quote unquote woke culture, or woke culture that's connected to critical race theory. If you're an ally, you're on the sidelines. You're kind of this NPC that is favorable to the cause. But if you're an accomplice, you move into action. This is truth. So what they've done here is they've decided to use Sicknick as a reverse martyr, because in reality, he is the thing that earlier in the summer that they were actually railing against. So they don't really care where their martyrs come from. And this is the equivalent of Steve Bannon saying that he would like Anthony Fauci and Christopher Wray's heads on spikes outside the Capitol. It's a variation on that. It's a version of that. But unlike Bannon, whose examples are crude, barbaric, and quite effective when it comes to particular cultures, this is a much more muted and passive aggressive version of that. And to me, it is one of the most gross examples of manipulation I've ever seen. There's also a ritual effect here, because this is theoretically the setup for what's going to happen next week with DJT and the supposed impeachment trial, impeachment 2.0. It's a sequel. Hollywood loves sequels, don't they? The first one was such a blockbuster. Grabbed all of our attention and sucked up a lot of our. I tried to stay away from it when it was happening. It was like, dude, I don't really want to give my attention to this thing. And I didn't spend a lot of time with the impeachment. There were more interesting things to get into and cover and talk about and explore. But this is what we're witnessing here is a ritual. This is a ritual, and it is a ritual of reverse martyrdom. And then what they have done is they have essentially stolen this idea that they're now the patriots, right? These are the people that stand for America. These are the people who stand for liberty and freedom and truth. They've glommed onto Brian Sicknick, and they have reversed the polarity. And what's ironic here, and I'm going to show you this, is that it's more than likely that one of their own, Antifa, who, by the way, answers to both the right and left, and there are some elements of Antifa that are independent of Biden or independent of Trump. Like Andy Ngo talks about this, and really what they're into is the complete takedown and disassembling of the system. Period. End of story. That's why they continue to riot in Portland after Biden was elected. That said, they're also infiltrated, and they have amongst them agents provocateurs and members of the intelligence agencies. Alphabet are inside of Antifa. Alphabet are inside of BLM. This stuff has happened for a very long time. They infiltrate. That's what they do. So what they've done is they've taken this individual there, and it's a reverse martyrdom, because usually the martyr is not a fallen cop. Usually the martyr is anything but a fallen cop. David Dorn was shot in the head in St. Louis, if I'm not mistaken, over the summer. And where's he? Where's his tribute? He was out there actually standing up and trying to do something about the chaos that was descending upon his city. And what happened? He got executed. Where's he? Where's he? And again, what's interesting about David Dorn is that he's so-called Black African American, and Brian Sicknick is white. And you would think that, again, using the cynical rules of engagement, that David Dorn would fit the cultural standards of being a martyr, but he doesn't. It's all about time and place. But Brian Sicknick does. So this is why he's a reverse martyr. And this is an occult ritual. You know, one of the things about occult rituals, and you can see this in Eyes Wide Shut with Stanley Kubrick, is the wearing of masks. And here we have everybody present wearing masks, 6 feet apart, that number 6. And then in the center is their martyr. This is their occult fetish. And again, the idea is to charge the space so that when the theoretical impeachment trial happens next week, this is something they're going to reference. They will reference this moment again and again and again. They will resurrect the corpse of Brian Sicknick again and again and again. Now, he's not the only. So where does this really begin? I mean, these are funerary rites, and there's a lot of occult practice around funerary rites. But one of the most famous examples of this comes out of the Bolshevik playbook. The most famous example of this happens to be, come on, there we go, happens to be Vladimir Ilyich Lenin, whom apparently you can still see and visit his open tomb. And of course, oh, his body improves with age. Isn't that interesting? Yes, because that is a clear example that Leninism actually works. By the time the world is fully bathed in the red glow of Leninism, Lenin will be resurrected from the tomb and walking amongst us. So this is another variation. Now, Lenin was not a martyr. It's interesting. Stalin, he got his body removed. It's like, no, you don't get to share Lenin's tomb. Stalin was about 5'6". Lenin was a shrimp too, 5'4". As I've noted before, a lot of these dictators, a lot of these tyrants tend to be small people, small men. So there you go. There's your reverse martyr magic. And how many times will Brian Sicknick be mentioned next week? Plenty. I don't know what the over-under will be, but you know that his name will be on everybody's tongue because they're trying to charge the moment. Now, who is really behind what happened on January 6th, by the way, is a new 9/11. We're dealing with 2 9/11 realities, actually 3 9/11 realities simultaneously. We're dealing with the virus, we're dealing with the summer of Floyd, and now we're dealing with this, the January 6th moment. So those are 3 9/11s happening simultaneously. So what do you have? You have theoretically 999 or 666. I mean, the dates don't correspond, but the reference points have to do with 9/11. And we're watching it happen right now, right in front of us. One of the main players in the theater on January 6th is John L. Sullivan. You know what I'm talking about? John L. Sullivan. Let me show you something here. John L. Sullivan, also known as Jaden X, is more than just Antifa. He is an agent provocateur. He has, I mean, this guy has an Uber commercial. He's the son of an adopted son of a military general. He's got a brother. The brother outed him. He and the brother are adopted. So let me show you. A Gateway Pundit has an exclusive on a video that John L. Sullivan was rocking to his comrades. So this is the headline here. New video surfaces. You know what? I need to get the volume up on this thing. Hold on a second. I got to go back. My bad. There we go. Exclusive new video surfaces of Antifa insurgents leader John Sullivan training Antifa soldiers and selling riot equipment at his website. Now, here he is, trumped out. Again, he's an agent provocateur. This thing is a total false flag. This is him, Jaden X. Time to kick this fascist out of D.C. on January 6, 2020. Trump is not our president. Dump him for good. Location, Washington Monument, 11 a.m. Visit newinsurgentsusa.com for more information. So this is the call to action. Let's watch his video presentation here. Do a few minutes of it.
What's up, guys? Hopefully you're having a good day. Wanted to make this video to show you guys what you should be dressing like, how you should be wearing your protest gear, how you should be dressing black bloc style. If you go out and protest, this is what you should be wearing. I'm gonna take off my jacket because I'm inside. I'm gonna put that over here. All right. Good morning, good afternoon, because I live in fucking the USA. So that being said, it's nighttime here. It's 7:35. But I wanted to go over quickly, and I'll leave questions towards the end, okay? So if anybody has questions, I'll answer them at the end. I want to go through this video so that way I can have a clear and decisive way of getting information across to you guys without, you know, jumbling a whole bunch of stuff in between. All right. So properly dressed black bloc, pretty simple, all black. But a lot of people get the misconception. Maybe you can wear a black t-shirt that has a logo on it on the sleeve or on the chest. No, you cannot. No logos, guys. Zero, none. You cannot have anything that they would be able to come back and identify.
So just remember, when you go out and protest your middle-class privilege, leave the logos at home. See, that was the one thing about the whole MAGA thing. There was an entire industry around MAGA apparel. It was too branded. It was too branded. And I get it. Brands are important. Symbols are important. But it was too easy to cop in some ways. You saw him wearing his MAGA cap. Anyway, where's Trump cap? Let's keep going.
Identify you at the end of the day. Another thing is that you'll need is to make sure all your skin is covered up. Now you see here, some of my skin's covered or not covered, but also here, I don't have any tattoos, but I have tattoos covering up here. So you do not want to show any tattoos whatsoever.
Hide your tats. Hide your tats.
Cover all of those up. Ideally, I would love to cover my eyes, but at nighttime, which most protests are happening, I can't wear sunglasses. I could wear goggles, but I couldn't see. I probably wouldn't be able to see so clearly either. All right. Another thing is a backpack, okay? You're going to want an all black bag, no logos. Here I have a patch on it, so I can take this off for protest. This is my sake, all right? So I can take that off. It's all black. Now, you're probably like, where can I get this stuff, all right? I have listed all the items that I have on right now that I've purchased, that I've worn on the website, on my website. I've gone through the liberty of putting them on there, so you guys can buy them off there for the same price as you would get in the store. I am not upcharging it at all. This is something I want to do for protesters. This is something that I want to do to help everybody out. All right. It's a community. We come together as collectives. All you comrades out there know what I'm talking about.
He's got the lingo, right? It's a community. We come together as collectives. This is the Aquarian wet dream, or at least a version of it. And we come together as comrades. And this guy was raised by a retired, well, he's retired now. He was raised by the United States Army general. Isn't that interesting? And his brother turned him in. Now, once he was turned in, he was arraigned, and then he was let go. Catch and release. While Buffalo Shaman guy, Jake Chansley, is essentially rotting away in jail because he won't eat the food. The food is not organic. So he's basically on a hunger strike. Whatever you think of the guy, theoretically, he's still in jail, and then this guy is out on the streets. He's out on the streets. Why is he out on the streets? Well, number one, he's connected. And he's connected to Intel. I'm pretty sure this guy is a little agent provocateur and very Gemini-like, moves between worlds, probably connected to military intelligence vis-a-vis his father. And the other thing is that, you know, James Lindsay talks about this, and he talks about this through the lens of Foucault. Who is this radical philosopher, which his treatise on tolerance and a number of other things, his essays on tolerance and a number of other issues are kind of the cornerstones of modern social Marxism, and especially this idea of tolerance. And one of the things that comes through in both that essay that James Lindsay is referring to, and also what Andy No is talking about, is this mindset or the zeitgeist that goes along with the idea that violence is justified. It is justifiable as a first strike response for any kind of aggression that could theoretically unleash itself, because the world is an oppressive place. The social institutions are oppressive. They're run by fascists, and fascists, by and large, part of their nature is to strike out, hurt, damage, and incarcerate people. So knowing that, being preemptive gives these people license to be violent. So there's this code, there's this ethos that since they're fighting fascism, violence is okay. But on the other side, the same violence, or the same, not the same violence, but an equal portion of violence, or an equal portion of anger, or an equal portion of resistance coming from the other side is not allowed. Because there's only one true and just reaction and narrative here, and that's this one. And this is the one that is not only being popularized, it's being sanctified. And that's why, another reason why this guy is still on the streets. So I just wanted to show this to you because, again, we know that this system is beyond flawed. It's completely broken. But I wanted to show this to you as to how deeply embedded this character and the ideology that he's associated with are connected to the world we're in now, or this version of reality that we're in now. So another reason I'm sorry, I just got interrupted a bit. Another reason why I brought this up is because this is a guy that was actually in a part of the Capitol on that stairwell, causing damage. Like he was within 4 feet of Ashley Babbitt, videotaping the whole thing. And he's got a background in insurgencies. He was inside the actual rotunda. He was in 2 places at once, which I find kind of hard to believe, but theoretically he was. So this is one of the characters who, again, theoretically, not only stormed the Capitol, but was a leader in storming the Capitol, which ultimately led to the death of Brian Sicknick. And yet you won't hear or have this part of that story connected. They won't mention any of that while they're standing around eulogizing and ritualizing his death. We live in a very strange world. Very strange world. And and I don't think we've seen the half of it yet. Famous lyrics. All right. Where are we? Let me check in with you guys. Can astrology determine your body shape? All the kids in my family about this age struggle putting on body mass. They try really hard but stay very skinny. I wish I had that problem. Not everything is astrology. Sometimes things are just genetics. And my father was really skinny when he was young. That's just the way he was. But as he got older, he put on weight. And even when I was in high school, by the time I was a junior in high school, I'd grown a lot. So I was usually kind of at the upper end height wise, but I was pretty thick as a kid, like around 12 years old, 13 years old. By the time I got to 15, I'd grown a lot. So at that point I was skinny. I think astrology can cover a lot of things. Sometimes in terms of the appearance, the ascendant, like there are certain signs on the ascendant which trend towards being taller, believe it or not. Sagittarius is one of them. Leo's another one. Aquarius can be tall. There are shorter signs. Cancer on the ascendant tends to be shorter. It's not a given with every single individual, but those are trends. Usually some of the fire signs on the ascendant tend to be taller. Let's see. Astrology probably can. Check out the Ayurvedic doshas. I think those things are genetic. Ptolemy, Ptolemy, the father of Western astrology, and really more known for his astronomical work versus his astrological work, because he did both. He said, and this is one of the things that I tell people, especially students, he said that astrology is a really good system, but as a system, it has its ceiling or ceilings. Number one, astrologically, and this is something that I've had to take into account as well, because when Ptolemy was around, they didn't see Pluto. Pluto was not part of the conversation. And Pluto tends to be generational. And you can ascribe generational meaning, both your contemporary generation or where Pluto's at, like right now. We've got Pluto in Capricorn. And it's a heavy time. It's a very heavy time. And Pluto went into Capricorn in 2009, right at the beginning of the housing crisis. And look at all the shit that's happened since 2009. And we're basically seeing this, the superstructure of these Capricornian and Saturnian forces transform our world. Like Klaus Schwab, this Saturnian character, this old man, is essentially using the power of quote unquote transformation to end one epoch, one era, and one paradigm and begin another one. That's Pluto and Capricorn. Jeff Bezos, a Capricorn, playing a huge role, huge figure during this time, with Amazon destroying small businesses along the way. So we can begin to piece together narratives, contemporary narratives with Pluto. You can see it happen. Like, just go back to when 9/11 happened. Pluto was in Sagittarius. And what was the buzz then? The buzz then was, oh, these guys from another country, they're bad people. That's Sagittarian, other countries. They're bad people. Oh, they're a different religion. They're Muslims. Sagittarius rules religion. So you could see how Pluto and Sagittarius was defining the narrative for that period of time. And then it switched. Now it became Capricorn. Now we have a new boogeyman. It has nothing to do with the Muslims, has nothing to do with people from another country. It has everything to do with right here, this country, and a new type of boogeyman. So I think one of the things that Ptolemy said was that your culture, your time, is not always traceable or trackable as an astrological metric. But I think the times have changed. And he also said that your family and your genetics, he basically was talking about your ancestry, they play roles that aren't always a function of astrology. Like, you have to take those things into account. And I think that that's true in a lot of ways. So it's a very good system, and it can work with a lot of different things. But when it comes to trying to figure out why your kids tend to be skinny at a certain age, I think it's probably more hereditary and genetics versus astrological. Wanted to get into this thing around, I've been trying to find it. It's not easy to find, but the states now are starting to push back on big tech. Let's see if I can find this here. So Google started a data center in Alabama. And I think I can't find it. I found it yesterday. Now, Alabama was outside of this antitrust suit. There were two states outside of the antitrust suit against Google. One was Alabama and the other was California. And I'm trying to find this thing on Alabama. I may have to save it for tomorrow. Now, DeSantis in Florida, clearly, he was on Tucker Carlson, whom I don't really watch anymore. But DeSantis now in Florida are coming out. Basically, they're going to start mandating that Twitter and YouTube do certain things, very specific things around things like shadow banning, and especially when it comes to anybody that's in political office. And they're talking about fines, like $100,000 fines. So Rick DeSantis is an interesting character. Again, you don't get to be in a position of power unless you have a lot of favors granted and you have a lot of people that are supporting your rise to power. Rick DeSantis, I think, won Florida by 1% of the vote. And he beat Andrew Gillum, and Andrew Gillum then went on a crack bender after that. So it's probably worked out pretty well for Florida. Just saying. By the way, Andrew Gillum, I hope you get your life together. But DeSantis now is starting to look like the one guy who is pushing back on the quote-unquote New World Order. It's a state where you don't have to wear a mask. And while there have been some furloughs around Disney World, it's still open. They're having a Super Bowl there in Tampa Bay. Is that a coincidence? Florida. And he's starting to pop up on Tucker Carlson more often. So I think he's being propped up to make a presidential run if we get through this period by 2024. He's a stark contrast to Greg Abbott in Texas. They're opposite signs. Greg Abbott's a Scorpio, and DeSantis is a Taurus. And of the two, I actually kind of like DeSantis, even though he's a politician. But at least he's representing his state in a way that resembles some version of reality that we're kind of acquainted with. Let me show you a scene from a grocery store in Florida. This is hilarious. Some guy from NBC News or NBC News crew captured this, and they were aghast. They were aghast. It just shows you how far we've fallen. Here, let me do this. It's mind-blowing, actually. Oops. If you guys live in Florida, you probably already know this. You've probably already seen this. I'm going to play it anyway. All right. The thing that's really mind-blowing about this is that 2 years ago, this would be a nothing piece of video. It'd be like, so what? It's like, what the fuck is so special about this? It's just a grocery store. But now, in this context and in this time, this thing is like the center of a plague, right? It is this kind of petri dish of this viral contagion, and now it's become a symbol of social outrage. And just wait for the white privilege and the oppression. Somehow, by people not wearing masks here, it is oppressing some other group somewhere else. I guarantee you. All right, here we go. One second. There's a few masks there. Majority. One second. None, or few. She's like, who the hell are you? We're having a nice little chat there. So that's trending. That's trending on Twitter. Amazing, huh? Totally amazing. Something that was so normal 2 years ago now is the cause of a collective freakout. That's Rick DeSantis. What do you guys think? I know, right? Isn't that great? It's like, wow. 20th century all over again. And they were happy. They were like chatting, carrying on. Hey, how are you? Not a care in the fucking world. Which is the way it should be, actually. I've been in that store. It's called Natural Food Store. I think real high-end, real pricey outside of Orlando. Call Charles. Let's see. The outrage. Being human. What a concept. And now you have all these virtue signalers who are completely denouncing these people. They're the problem. Let them die. Let them. Remember when Brian Kemp, that traitorous son of a bitch from Georgia, remember when he said, we're not going to wear the mask? I'm not going to mandate the mask. Everybody on Twitter was flipping out. They were predicting that this was going to be the next Black Plague. Georgia, Atlanta would be the new Auschwitz. And I remember reading those tweets. Gee, what happened? What happened? Did that actually really happen? Did that come to pass? Yeah, I don't think so. I don't think it happened. In fact, I know it didn't happen. But these people, they're so steeped in fear, and they're so steeped in their conditioning now that they want to own it like a badge of honor, and they are going to fight for their narrative no matter what. Masaki sent me this. I wish I had it. He sent me this funny, like, video clip of this guy named Kevin Smith, and he's in California, and he's hiking, and he's by himself, and he's wearing 2 masks. By himself, and he's hiking, wearing 2 masks. And some guy says, "Hey, isn't 2 masks overkill?" And he said, "Did you know that Batman wears a mask?" And then he took pride in the fact that he came up with a stupid fucking reply. I mean, this is the season of madness that we're in right now. Absolute madness. So I'm going to leave a link to the story or the article that I'm going to, I'm not going to talk about it. I'm not going to talk about it because there are certain words that can get me on a list. But I am going to leave a link to this, and it's actually very impressive. Maybe I'll find a way to talk about it in some way, but not in great depth and detail. I'll talk sort of above and around it. This is from a website called winterwatch.net. Uncle Glenn's familiar with this. I've seen him over there. Bit of a controversial website for some. Compelling evidence is a scamdemic. So this is a really interesting report. Now, what happened here is that they took 4 very specific pieces of data. 4 very specific pieces of data. The first piece of data was that if this was a respiratory illness, then theoretically oxygen would be in higher demand, because you want to pump the people up with the oxygen that they're not getting. And with all the numbers of people who were suffering from this acute respiratory system malady, you would think that there'd be more oxygen that would be on the market. Well, the answer is there's not. Nope. In fact, the oxygen sales went from 64 billion to 61 billion. I think that's a lot of, you know what? That is a lot of oxygen. $64 billion worth of oxygen each year. Think about that. That is something. I didn't know that oxygen was such a big business. Anyway, dropped $3 billion during a time when people were really needing oxygen. Okay, so that's one data point. Well, what else do we have here? The 5 largest medical supply companies in the U.S. are McKesson, Amerisource, Bergen, Henry Schein, Cardinal Health, and Medline Industries. Dr. Huber explained, although these 5 companies' sales, so now we're looking at the sale of the equipment, the things that are used in order to deliver that oxygen. You would think that these companies would be experiencing financial growth. Not the case. Although these 5 companies' sales increased slightly in 2020 over 2019, the growth rate for the past year has slowed compared to the 5-year aggregate overall growth rate for these companies. So even though it's a slight increase based on the 5-year pattern, it's down. It's down. So now you have the people who supply the equipment, their sales are not relative to theoretically what's taking place. You have oxygen itself, which is being delivered by the equipment, and that's down as well. Okay, well, what else can we wrap our heads around here? How about deaths? Now, this is the Johns Hopkins study that was taken down. Look, this was up and now it's down. This is a researcher. Who is it? Genevieve Brandt. Okay, Dr. Huber, the researcher, essentially says that, hey, the numbers from these people aren't really to be trusted. Well, why is that? (2020) Here we go. Roughly the same as 2019. How about that? A difference of 8 per 100,000 with a slight increase in population. And a slight increase here overall. Now, what he says is important. Remarkably, obituaries, because now they're into the obituary metric. Remarkably, obituaries of real identifiable deceased individuals declined by almost 18% from 2019 to 2020. Isn't that interesting? If these obituaries are representative of deaths in the US as a whole, then it is impossible for there to be a pandemic in the United States in 2020. Well, this is what Dr. Huber, this is a doctor, These deaths are at least verifiable, unlike the unaudited, unverified numbers that the blanky blank presents. It is also interesting that the month with the largest number of blank deaths, according to the blank, April 2020, ranks 6th out of the 12 months of 2020 regarding total obituaries. So they don't match. So one group says, okay, this month, April, is the highest rate of mortality, but then you look at the obituaries and they don't match. Where else have we seen this? Where statistics and data doesn't match. So I'm going to put this original source of the abstract right in here. So you guys can grab this link and pass it around if you like. There you go. So there's your study right there. Dr. Huber. I do have good news in terms of our local effort here to pump the brakes on the encroachment of the reset into lovely Fredericksburg and the Hill Country. It looks like they actually finally removed the reporting tool from the website. There was a statement in the paper from our esteemed city manager that says that not he, but the city has removed the reporting tool. And now if there's an issue, businesses are required to deal with people directly around there are safety concerns. So, hey, if that's true, then participation at a local level actually worked. We were actually able to have that little tiny piece that was invading our privacy and setting up a network of suspicion, doubt, and in some cases even betrayal removed from the website. Now we still have not confirmed that the reporting tool, which was for a while and for a time being, transferred over to the telephone. People could call things in. But with that statement, it seems to be clear that they're saying, look, if you got a complaint, take it to the businesses, which is a very, very different reality than 6 weeks ago or 8 weeks ago when we showed up en masse at the city council meeting and have continued to apply the pressure to the city council. So we're not done yet, though. We have more things to tackle when it comes to what's happening locally. I wanted to talk about, there's some very interesting evidence that what's going on in the White House is completely staged right now. I found a really interesting video that makes it pretty clear that there are things that have happened in a different location. I'm going to save that till tomorrow. When the Crimmies are going to be here with us tomorrow on Friday. And looking forward to that because we weren't able to do last week's show since I was MIA with a reason. I had a note from my doctor. So I'll bring that in as a point of discussion. And I know Steve and Chris have a few other things that they want to bring to the table. The power of the pen. Amen. The power of the pen. Send it to us, please. Okay, I'll send it to you. All right. I think that's it for today because I got to get out of here and I got a client in about half an hour. So, the tide is going to turn here. It is going to turn. There are more people waking up in a different kind of way now. Like we had a mass awakening through the Q vortex, which again, I'm not going to completely dismiss. I think that there was some validity to that reality. I think a lot of people woke up en masse with a lot of support, although ultimately it was used to have a blanket statement and demonize a lot of people, which is unfortunate because that's what's happening now. That said, that awakening process hasn't stopped. We're still in it. There are still people that are, just beginning to rise out of this slumber, this deep slumber for a long time. And it's not easy. It's definitely not easy. People have asked me, well, what's the payoff? You wake up and you realize you live in hell. Well, I think there's really no other option right now than to go through it. We just have to get through this thing. And we will. We'll get through it. One day at a time. And I'll just circle back to what I said yesterday, that you are the point of consciousness for all of this. It begins and it ends with you, and not in a narcissistic way, but in a holistic and analog way. And it's important to understand that. And it's important to continue, even though it's very difficult and people face a lot of challenges. It's important to have very small victories. Very small victories. And then you just keep adding those small victories up. And then you wind up covering some ground. You build up some character. You build up some chi or some ashe, some life force, and you get stronger. I just got a notification from Tim Pool. Somehow I get notifications from Tim Pool. I don't get them from anybody else. Isn't that weird? I do subscribe to Tim Pool, by the way. And it's funny. He said AOC is getting roasted. She is totally getting roasted. See, this is what's happening. You see somebody like AOC who is claiming that these people were going to kill her. And she's accusing Ted Cruz of being the mastermind of this group. And this group was intent on murdering her. And of course, she has trauma from being abused in the past. And it's all Ted Cruz's fault. Well, guess what? She wasn't even in the damn building. She was across the street and she was with a bunch of other people. And there's video of them walking around and they're all like, wearing their masks and they're all, pretty safe. So her contextualization of what happened on January 6th to her is being completely shredded. You see, these are the things that the awakening process will initiate and trigger from the world of E. Michael Jones. This is Logos. This is Logos. Logos is the great revelator. Logos is the awakener. And people are seeing this now. And even the Democrats who have, been trying to corral her and let her be the queen of TikTok and bring in a bunch of young voters, they're starting to kind of look away. And it's kind of interesting that, they really, really want Marjorie Taylor Greene out of there. And she's been taking up all the headline space. But now all of a sudden, AOC's in competition. And in some ways, taking off a lot of the heat. She's taking away some of the smoke from Marjorie Taylor Greene. It's interesting. And again, this is something we saw during the Trump administration, where there'd be a concerted effort to do one thing, make something happen, and in actuality, the reverse would occur. And people called it the Trump curse. I don't think it's the Trump curse. I just think it's Logos expressing itself. And, that's a tiny victory. That's a small victory to see that Ocasio-Cortez, by the way, the number one trending hashtag on Twitter yesterday was Ocasio-Cortez Smollett. That was the number one trending hashtag on Twitter yesterday. Think about that. And Twitter is a progressive tool and medium for the left, if you want to parse it out that way. And one of their own was trending in a negative fashion on Twitter. That's something. All right. I'm out of here for now. Use your head in order to discern what's real, your heart to stable what's possible. I'm Robert Phoenix. Have a great day. Chatlandia, you're the best. I'll be back tomorrow with the Crimmies over on the other channel at 12 noon. Bye for now.